I think that Tzvi touched on most issues. I would like just to focus on two aspects. The first is I want to stress that the threat from Iran is recognized certainly here after the U.S. is looking to renegotiate the deal with respect to the nuclear Iranian threat. However, as we mentioned, in fact, I would say that Iran used the international focus on the nuclear threat to establish itself as the hegemonic power in large parts of the Middle East. We are focusing today on Syria, but clearly its influence in Lebanon and Iraq and even Yemen is growing, and as an effect of that, its threat not only on Israel, but on other American allies, meaning clearly Saudi Arabia and the Arab Emirates and of course Jordan are being increasingly threatened by the fact that Iranian forces and their proxies are actually situated very close to their borders. And in this aspect, we have to see that the Iranian threat is not only a general potential danger, but clearly the Iranians are directing their efforts to first of all secure this land corridor from Tehran to the Mediterranean, where Israel's presence in the Golan, where the Golan is in a sense the keystone that can prevent or at least be a problem to this corridor for two reasons. First of all, although the Golan is a very small area, it consists of 0.6% of the area of Syria before '67. It has very great importance because of its where it's situated very close to Damascus, and also it overlooks not only southern Syria but also northern Jordan, and it has already happened before in 1970 when the Assad clan wanted basically to topple the regime in Jordan and moved to its army towards the Jordanian border. Israel's presence on the Golan stopped that effort. And today we know that Jordan is currently being seriously destabilized by all these refugees that are coming in, and it would be far more destabilized when, assuming when the situation in the southern Syria becomes one where you have not only so-called Syrian army, but all kinds of Iranian proxies situated near Jordan's border. And it's important, in our view, to stress that when we talk about Syria and the Syrian army, we regard the Syrian regime today as not a little more than an Iranian puppet, with some, let's say, Russian influence thrown in. But basically, Assad's army today is unable to control Syria. Its control in Syria is basically based on mostly Russian Air Force and Iranian soldiers and pro-Iranian militias from all kinds of places. Those are the foot soldiers. So if Iran would have pulled the plug today, Assad would have fallen down. So clearly, we have to understand Assad not as an Iranian ally, but basically as an extension of Iranian power. Now, in our view, the Golan becomes a keystone naturally for the protection of Israel, but also for the protection of Jordan and other pro-American allies, and also for, I would say, our outlook toward the future of Syria and of the region. And this is because at the moment there is no real direct threat to Israel's de facto control of the Golan. However, we are trying to put forward the idea that now is a good time to, for the US to recognize Israeli sovereignty in the Golan, or at least take first steps in this direction. And this is for two reasons. The first reason is that it would send a very strong message toward Iran and Syria and even Russia that what they did and they are doing it, unfortunately, may do in the future in Syria has repercussions, because otherwise their idea would be, we killed a million people, we created I don't know, millions of refugees in Syria and so on, and basically we paid no price. So in this sense, American military activities or boots on the ground are far more complex, while recognizing Israel's sovereignty in the Golan has let's say, has the consequence that with very little effort it brings, we believe, a very high return for US interests. Clearly, we believe that the Golan is very different than the case, let's say, of Judea and Samaria, where there is a large Arab population and there are issues of human rights and so on. In the Golan, that doesn't exist. The whole population in the Golan currently is 50,000 people. About half of them are Israeli citizens. The other half are Druze that have the right to be Israeli citizens. And so in that aspect, it's a very easy case. And also we believe that Jordan certainly, but also other US allies like Egypt and Saudi would see that. I'm not expecting them to clap publicly, but they will understand it as a step that is making them stronger against the Iranian threats, and is setting a message that to Iran and to Syria that there are things that you have to pay a price for. And we believe that there is a second important aspect of this of the recognition of Israeli sovereignty of the Golan, is that basically US policy in the last two generations has been based to a great extent on the sanctity of existing borders. Now, for a long time, there might have been some kind of, let's say, rationale for that, in the sense that for most of the post-World War II years, there was a Cold War, and every change in every country might impact the rise of Russia's allies and so on. But on the other hand, we have to remember that this regional system could exist only by dictatorships that basically had to push down every kind of national, ethnic, religious self-expression, because all those countries were created against these regional expressions. Now, since the end of the Cold War, but far more since 2011, what has been happening is that these internal conflicts have been exacerbated and have led to, I would say, the intercommunitarian hatred has been multiplied many times over. And basically what has happened in Syria, in Iraq, in other places, is that there has been a terrible intercommunal, I would say, not even warfare. Many times it's massacres, and the Shiite and Sunnis in Iraq and Syria have been and are being moved to various areas, and basically to think that in the future Assad regime could reestablish stability in Syria would mean that there will be constant oppression of all minorities and a constant, I would say, bloodbath in order to sustain this regime. And our belief is that recognizing Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights would send a message to such regimes that there might be, not necessarily, but there could be a territorial price to pay, and it would serve at least as some kind of balance, or as a potential weapon for American diplomacy and policy to have in the Middle East.